It was our 5th wedding anniversary. I had cooked his favorite meal. I had put our daughter to bed early so we could have the evening together. He hit me across the face at the dinner table. And then he smiled. That smile was the last thing he ever did as my husband. By sunrise, my daughter and I were already gone.
Welcome to Haely Stories. This is the place where you will find real and emotional women's stories that will touch your heart, make you feel seen, and remind you that you are never alone in what you are going through. If that is something you need in your life, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a single story. Now, let me tell you about the night I made the hardest and the most important decision of my life.
My name is Fiona Calm, and I am 28 years old. I want to start by telling you something that took me a long time to be able to say out loud. I was in an abusive marriage for 5 years, and I did not leave until the night he hit me in front of the evidence of everything I had tried to build for us. A candlelit table, his favorite food. 5 years of trying. I am not telling you this because I am ashamed. I am telling you this because I know that there are women listening to this right now who are inside something similar and who are telling themselves the same things I told myself for 5 years. That it was not that bad. That things would get better. That leaving was too complicated. That staying was the right thing for their child. I want you to hear what I know now. It is always that bad. Things do not get better on their own. Leaving is complicated, but it is survivable. And staying is never the right thing for your child. My name is Fiona Calm. I am 28 years old, and this is the story of the night I finally understood that. I met my husband Marcus when I was 22 years old. He was 26. Confident in a way that felt, when I was 22, like strength. He had opinions about everything, and he stated them without hesitation. And at 22, I read that as certainty, as someone who knew who he was and where he was going and what he wanted. I did not understand yet that there is a difference between confidence and control. That the same quality that made him seem so certain of himself would, over 5 years of marriage, turn into something that had nothing to do with strength and everything to do with needing to be the only person in any room who mattered. The first year of our marriage was good, or it seemed good. I know now that what I was experiencing was the version of Marcus that existed when everything was going the way he wanted, when I was agreeable and available and shaped around his preferences without friction. The problem started when I stopped being perfectly agreeable, when I had opinions of my own that differed from his, when I pushed back on something small and he responded in a way that was larger than the situation required. He never hit me in the early years. I want to be accurate about the timeline because I think it matters. What he did in the early years was other things. Raising his voice, saying things that were designed to make me feel small, and then walking them back with an apology that always seemed genuine enough to believe. Isolating me gradually from friends and from my own family in ways so slow and reasonable sounding that I did not notice the pattern until the circle had become very small. By the time our daughter Lily was born, I had been managing Marcus for 3 years. I called it managing. I understand now what it actually was. Lily came into our lives when I was 25, and she changed everything about me while changing nothing about Marcus. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. She had his eyes and my nose and a particular expression when she was concentrating on something that belonged entirely to herself. I fell in love with her the way you fall into something inevitable, completely and without reservation. Marcus was a different kind of father than I had hoped. Not absent, present in ways that were about his own image of himself as a father rather than about what Lily actually needed from him. He liked the idea of her. He was proud of her in public. At home, he was impatient with the noise and the mess and the unpredictability of a small child. And that impatience had a quality that I watched very carefully from the beginning. He never directed anything frightening toward Lily. I monitored that with everything I had, and I am certain of it. What he directed at me was something he was careful to keep between us, behind closed doors, in lowered voices, in the particular language of a man who knows exactly what he is doing and knows exactly how to do it without leaving marks. I stayed for Lily. That is what I told myself. I stayed because I believed that a child needed two parents and that leaving would be harder on her than staying. I told myself that as long as he was not hurting her directly, I could manage it. I could absorb it. I could keep things stable for her sake. That belief cost me 3 more years. I want to be honest about what those 5 years actually looked like from the inside, because I think the outside of a marriage like that is designed to look like something else entirely. From the outside, we were a normal family, a nice house, a healthy child, 2 working parents. Marcus was charming in social situations, with the ease of someone who has practiced it. People liked him. People who knew us would have been genuinely surprised by what I am about to tell you. From the inside, it was something that I had become so used to that I had lost the ability to see it clearly. He controlled the money. Not completely. I had my own income from my work as a teacher, and he could not take that. But the household finances were entirely his, and asking about them was treated as a challenge to his authority, rather than a legitimate question. He monitored my phone, casually, in ways that were easy to explain as curiosity or interest, but consistently, always. He had opinions about how I dressed and how I spent my time and who I spent it with, that he expressed in ways that sounded like preferences and functioned like rules. And periodically, when the pressure of whatever was happening in his own mind reached a certain level, he would say something that left a mark. Not a physical mark. The other kind. The kind that takes longer to heal, because there is nothing to point to. I navigated all of it. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself it was manageable. I told myself Lily needed stability. I was wrong about all of it. And on our 5th wedding anniversary, the thing that had been building for 5 years finally arrived in a form I could not explain away. I had planned the evening carefully. Lily was 5 years old, and she had gone to bed at 7 without much argument, tired from a day at school. I had made Marcus's favorite dinner, pasta with a sauce that took 2 hours and that he had told me once was the best thing I cooked. I had set the table properly, with candles and the good plates that we almost never used. I had done all of this because I was still, at that point, trying. I want you to understand that. I was still trying. After 5 years of all the things I have described, I was still setting the table with candles and making the 2-hour sauce because some part of me had not stopped hoping that the version of Marcus I had married, the version that might have been real or might have been something he performed, would show up for our anniversary and remind me why I had stayed. He came home at 8, an hour later than expected. He had been drinking, not heavily, but enough to take the edge off whatever filter he usually maintained in his better moments. We sat down. We ate. The conversation was the kind of conversation we had in those years. Careful and surface level.
Two people managing the distance between them with small talk. And then I said something. I do not even remember exactly what it was. Something small. Something that in a different marriage would have been nothing. A comment about plans for the following weekend that he interpreted as criticism. He looked at me across the candlelit table. And then he hit me. Open-handed, across my left cheek. Hard enough that I knocked against the back of my chair. The candles flickered. And then he smiled. Not a large smile, a small one. Controlled. The smile of a man who had just done something he had been thinking about doing and found that doing it felt like relief. I sat very still. I touched my cheek. And something inside me that had been bending for 5 years straightened completely and finally, and without any possibility of bending again. Marcus went to bed at 11. He did not apologize. He poured himself another drink after dinner and watched television for 2 hours, and went to bed as though the evening had been ordinary, as though what had happened at the dinner table was something we had agreed on, as though I would absorb it the way I had absorbed everything else, and we would wake up in the morning and continue. I sat at the kitchen table after he went upstairs. I sat there for a long time. I thought about Lily, asleep in her room upstairs, about the expression she had when she was concentrating on something, about the way she reached for my hand when she was uncertain about something, about what she was learning every day in that house, about what love looked like and what she should expect from the people who were supposed to love her. I thought about what she would carry with her if she grew up inside what I had been living inside. And I made my decision. Not with anger, not with drama, with a clarity that felt like the first clear thing I had felt in years. I went upstairs quietly. I went to Lily's room first. I watched her sleep for a moment. Then I went to our room, and I took what I needed from the wardrobe without turning on the light. I packed 2 bags. One for me, one for Lily. I went back to Lily's room, and I packed her things. Carefully. The things she loved. The stuffed rabbit she could not sleep without. The drawings she kept on her little desk. Her favorite clothes. I carried both bags downstairs. Then I went back upstairs, and I picked up my daughter. She stirred, but did not fully wake. She put her head on my shoulder with the complete trust of a sleeping child, and I held her against me, and I walked down the stairs and out the front door, and I did not look back at that house. I drove to my sister's house. Her name is Claire, and she lives 40 minutes away, and she is the person I had been slowly losing contact with over 5 years of Marcus managing my relationships. I had called her less and less. I had made excuses. I had explained away the distance with busy schedules and the demands of a small child, and everything except the truth. I pulled up outside her house at just after 1 a.m. I sat in the car for a moment with Lily still sleeping against me in the back, where I had settled her. I looked at Claire's house with the lights off, and I thought about what I was about to do. About knocking on my sister's door in the middle of the night and asking for something I had not asked anyone for in 5 years. Help. I knocked. Claire opened the door in 2 minutes. She looked at me. She looked at Lily in my arms. She looked at my face, at my left cheek, which I had not looked at myself yet, and did not know what it showed. She did not ask any questions. She opened the door wider and she said, "Come in, come in, come in." She put Lily in her spare room and she sat with me in her kitchen, and she made tea, and she listened to everything I said without interrupting once. When I finished, she reached across the table and took
both my hands and she said, "You are never going back there. Do you understand me? You are never going back." I said, "I know." And I meant it. For the first time. Lily woke up in an unfamiliar room and was confused for approximately 30 seconds before she decided that being at Auntie Claire's house was a wonderful development and demanded to know if there were pancakes. There were pancakes. Claire made them with the concentrated effort of someone who understood that a 5-year-old's experience of that morning needed to be normal and warm and about pancakes. I sat at Claire's kitchen table, and I called a lawyer. I had not planned to do it that morning. I had thought I would need more time to think. But I picked up my phone, and I called the number I had quietly saved 18 months earlier, when something inside me had whispered that I should know who to call if I ever needed to. 18 months earlier, I had saved that number and then told myself I was being dramatic. That morning, I understood that I had not been dramatic. I had been preparing. The lawyer's name was Susan. She was calm and practical, and she asked the right questions in the right order. And by the end of the call, I understood what my options were and what the next steps were and what I needed to document and preserve. I also called the police that morning. I want to be honest about that because I think it matters to the story. I made a report. I had the bruise on my cheek photographed. I did everything Susan told me to do in the order she told me to do it. Marcus called my phone 14 times that morning. I did not answer once. Marcus's first response was the response of a man who believed I would come back. He sent messages, long ones initially, full of apologies and explanations, and the particular language of someone who has done this before and knows which words tend to work. He said he did not know what had come over him. He said it would never happen again. He said Lily needed her father. He said I was destroying the family. I read the messages. I did not respond to any of them. When the messages did not produce a response, he called my sister. She told him clearly that I was not available and that he should communicate through my lawyer going forward. He showed up at Claire's house once. He rang the doorbell. Claire answered and told him to leave. He stood on the doorstep for a moment, and then he left. That was the last time I saw Marcus in person for 4 months. The divorce proceedings began 3 weeks after the anniversary. They were not easy. He fought aspects of the settlement that I will not go into detail about because they are private and because the details matter less than the outcome. What I will tell you is that I had documentation. I had the police report. I had Claire as a witness to the state I had arrived in that night. I had the lawyer I had called the morning after. I had prepared without knowing I was preparing, and that preparation mattered. The divorce was finalized 7 months later. Lily and I found an apartment 3 months after the anniversary. 2 bedrooms, a small garden that I had not expected and that Lily immediately claimed as her domain. She spent the first week we were there making plans for it that involved more flowers than the space could realistically contain, and I let her plan all of it, because watching her plan things with complete confidence in her own vision was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. She asked about her father. She was 5 and then 6, and the questions came in the direct and uncomplicated way that children ask things, and I answered them as honestly as I could for her age. I said her father and I were not going to live together anymore. I said she would still see him. I said the most important thing, the thing I said clearly and consistently every time the subject came up, was that none of it was her fault, and none of it had anything to do with how much she was loved. She seemed to accept this, with the resilience that children have when the adults around them are honest and stable. She started calling our apartment home within 2 weeks of moving in, just casually, naturally, the way children establish where they belong. That word, home, in her voice, about a place I had built for just the two of us, was the moment I understood that we were going to be fine. I am 28 years old, and I left my marriage on our 5th wedding anniversary, with my daughter asleep on my shoulder, and 2 bags of our things, and nothing else. I want to tell you what I know now that I did not know then. I know that leaving is not the hardest part. Deciding to leave is the hardest part. And deciding to leave is made harder by every story you have been told about staying, about working through things, about what a child needs, about what a marriage is supposed to be. Those stories are not always wrong, but they are completely wrong when what you are being asked to work through is someone who hurts you and smiles afterward. I know that the smile was the most important information I ever received about Marcus. Not the hit, the smile. Because the hit might have been explained away, the way I had explained away everything else for 5 years. But the smile told me something that could not be explained away. It told me that what had just happened was not a loss of control. It was a choice. And I know that you cannot build a life with someone whose control is a choice they make about when to let it slip. Lily is 6 now. She is loud and funny, and she draws pictures of our garden and hangs them on the refrigerator and tells me confidently what each flower is going to be, even before we have planted anything. She reaches for my hand when she is uncertain, and she lets go of it the moment she is not. And that letting go, that ease of it, tells me everything I need to know about how she is doing. She is doing well. We both are. My name is Fiona Calm. I am 28 years old. My husband hit me on our anniversary and smiled after. My daughter and I never looked back. And that is my story. He thought the smile would be the end of something. It was. Just not the end he imagined. It was the end of every version of me that was willing to stay. Thank you for listening. This is Haely Stories. We will see you in the next one.